At the junction of Station Road and the High Street is the Cedars pub built by Maddie Willier's grandfather. In the High Street is now recited the Queen Victoria Jubilee Trough. It was originally at the bottom of the High Street above an underground brook. It has been restored by Robert Stacey, in whose grounds it now resides. Also in the High Street is Bumbles Lane, built in 1912. Once a conservative club and used for stage shows and other village events, it now houses some small business units. The railway played an important part in village life, as up until the 1950s, the island's central railway passed through Wootton, providing easy access to Ryde and Newport. Today, Wootton is the end of the line for steam trains run by enthusiasts, where trips can be made to Hayden Street and then on to Smallbrook and the junction with the electric railway to either Ryde or Shanklin. Another important aspect of village life has centred around the village school. Today's school is a modern building in Church Road, backing onto the well-used recreation ground. The old school, built in 1866, had two entrances, one in Red Road and the other in New Road. Further down New Road is the Educational Centre, now known as Little Canada, where school parties can enjoy adventure holidays. It was where the big house called Woodlands was situated. From here the road continues, mainly unmade, to Woodside. Once a quiet and peaceful area, it became notorious for its use as a nudist camp. After some years, Warner's holiday camp took over and little chalets were built in the copse. Sadly, the area is now derelict, awaiting redevelopment. Many fine houses were built along the creek and are best viewed from the water. Particularly impressive is Lisle Court, once the home of Frank Cooper. There are also many moored houseboats. At the head of the creek is Wootton Bridge, an important causeway between Newport and Ryde. The local hunt often met in Wootton and is seen here crossing the bridge. On another occasion, the bridge was decorated to celebrate the wedding of Princess Beatrice. In more recent years, Wootton Bridge has been widened to take a pedestrian walkway across the creek, and new sluice gates were constructed. There is a public slipway at the side of the bridge, where years ago at high tide, ferry boats from Portsmouth brought visitors to the island.
A ferry boat used to come up, they used to bring people up, come up with the tide, and they'd get off and go perhaps in the sloop, and we'd go down and gaze at them, all these people from Portsmouth, then we'd go back before the tide.
Beyond the bridge is the mill pond that provided the power for driving the machinery at the mill, that dates back to the 11th century, when it was worked by monks and Quar Abbey. It ceased producing flour in 1945, and then for a short time went on to produce animal feeds. The mill was demolished in 1962 and was replaced by modern cottages. Our ladies recall their memories.
great-grandfather worked at the mill. He came from Emsworth and married a St Helens woman, my great-grandmother, and he worked at Wootton Mill for a time. I did see the changes because I remember it being used as a mill when I was small, and it was about in the 1960s it really fell to pieces and was pulled down. But they used to use it for flour, and then sort of during the war it was used for animal fodder, I think. And then after that it was just let go.
We used to go down there for the chicken food, for the maize and the blues. And the whole mill used to shake. The engine was one of the old-fashioned engines with a leather drive, you know, and it used to shake like fury.
Next to where the mill stood is the Sloop Inn, where horse-drawn coaches always stopped. Outside the sloop was a cottage run as a baker's by several generations of the Cooper family. Bundles of furs could be seen stacked outside the cottage, ready to be lit to heat up the oven. This area is now the sloop's car park. Today the sloop is run by Brewers Fayre and is a popular pub and restaurant. Fortunately, the facade has been retained, but the inside has been greatly expanded and modernised. Leaving the sloop and progressing up the High Street, we find Wootton's main shopping area. In the early days, the High Street was much narrower than today, as these old photographs show. There were a variety of shops serving the local needs, and Mary recalls working in the Draper's, now a security shop.
14.
14?
Yeah.
And what did you do then?
I worked in the village, in the shop in the village.
Where was
Yes, in the High Street there,
Yes.
below the chemist.
Yes.
2 doors below the chemist, yes.
And what was that shop at the time?
Drapers then, and
Yes.
all sorts of things, you know. We
So
stocked
your sewing
all
skill
the
was in
old,
the right
all the
direction.
old things everybody used in those days, you know. Knitting, wools and
That's right.
and cottons and silkos and tape measures and all the necessary
Things
things.
you can't buy in Wootton today.
Exactly.
Much of village life revolved around the post office. In the middle of the 19th century, the post office was sited close to the Sloop Inn in Mill Square. At the turn of the century, the premises moved to the High Street, approximately opposite the post office of today. This is now the picture framers known as Wisteria Gallery. Here was situated Wootton's only public telephone. Today, the post office is run by Mr. and Mrs. Reed, in premises which have been extended to accommodate Wootton's expanding population. Some of the other high street shops and businesses in the lower part of the high street can be seen in the following pictures. Returning to the Wootton Millenium project. The first phase culminated in the official opening of the parish map and notice board at Joanne's Walk in June 1998. The second phase was the unveiling of the wall hanging in the community.